Hey everyone, what's up? In this video, I'm going to detail our 7 days road trip from Las Vegas to Denver. We were 2 families in 2 cars with 4 children in all between the ages of 3 and 8. This was a very busy road trip for us, but we enjoyed it, and you can make it as relaxed as you like by adding more days along the route. Our journey started with flying into Las Vegas, picking up our rental cars, and heading off to Pahrump, Nevada for the night. On day 1 after breakfast, we picked up some supplies like water, juices, soda, snacks, ice, etc. from Walmart and headed towards Death Valley National Park. Just as we passed the national park sign, we arrived at a kiosk where we bought a day pass to the park, but got it credited towards an annual America is Beautiful pass at the visitor center. Our first stop in the park was Zabriskie Point. This is an iconic Death Valley vista and a favorite location for viewing sunrise and sunsets. We next headed to Furnace Creek Visitor Center where a park ranger helped us plan the day. Our next stop was Mesquite Flat Sand Dunes. The kids enjoyed the spot much more than Zabriskie Point, something to do with sand maybe. Right here is Tough Pipe Wells Village. It has a general store, a gas station, and a few other businesses. The gas is pretty expensive as compared to anywhere outside the park, but it's good for emergencies. We next headed towards Wildrose Charcoal kilns. Although the drive was beautiful and we saw a lot of wildflowers, we did not make it. Just as we hit a dirt road with a few miles left, we turned back. If we had to do Death Valley again on a one-day trip, we would skip this one. Our next stop was Mosaic Canyon. Mosaic Canyon was an instant hit with everyone. The little ones played with gravel, older ones climbed on the sides of the canyon, and the narrowest part of the canyon is only at 0.25 miles from the parking. And just a little more further into the canyon, the rocks get so smooth that the kids played slip and slide. Our next stop for the day was Artist Palette and Artist Drive. This is a 9-mile one-way drive. You're going to have to go farther and come back via the Artist Drive and then continue to Badwater Basin. Artist Drive and Palette is another world altogether. We walked through the canyon-like features that were carved by erosive power of water. This is also an idyllic spot for sunrise and sunset. Our next and last stop in the park was Badwater Basin. The kids loved this one. It was hard to imagine that we were standing 282 feet below sea level. Badwater Basin is the lowest point in North America. Stories suggest that Badwater Basin earned its name when a mule belonging to an early surveyor refused to drink from the spring-fed pool near the present-day boardwalk. However, the water is not truly bad, it's just very salty. By this time, all the kids were tired and got busy in their tablets for some Netflix time while we drove back to Las Vegas. We stayed the night on the strip and also drove through the strip a little bit to enjoy the numerous glittering lights of the city. On this day, we drove a total of 340 miles in about 13 hours. Day 2 started off lazily. We took time to explore the hotel we were staying in, got some breakfast, and then headed out of town towards Hoover Dam. We stopped to replenish some supplies to get some more ice and get takeout lunch. Our first stop for the day was at Boulder Dam Bridge parking. From here, we walked over the Mike O'Callaghan Pat Tillman Memorial Bridge for an aerial view of the Hoover Dam. We took turns watching the kids here and decided to not take them up there. Having spent 20 to 25 minutes taking turns, we headed to Hoover Dam. I'm always impressed by this dam, however, the water level was super low. We saw some really big fish in the water down there. I think it was carp. It was very hot and the kids lost interest very quickly. Then we set off on a long drive towards Grand Canyon National Park. We wanted to catch the sunset there, having missed it on our last trip a few years ago. We stopped for gas at the town of Seligman on the famous Route 66. This can also be a stop for lunch, and the town offers some touristy stops and photo ops with the Cars movie characters. Our next stop was Grand Canyon National Park Visitor Center. From there, we caught a shuttle to Bright Angel Trailhead and then another one to Mojave Point. Everyone enjoyed the shuttle ride and had great conversations with our co-passengers. We spent a couple hours at Mojave Point all the way until sunset. There's a good amount of railing and some dirt trails which kept the little ones busy. We took the shuttles back to the visitor center and then drove out of the park to Grand Canyon Village for dinner. Make sure you do not miss the last shuttle out. We had dinner at Plaza Bonita Mexican restaurant at Grand Canyon Village, and we loved both the food and the ambience. On this day, we drove an approximate 320 miles in about 12 hours. We stayed the night at Grand Canyon Inn in Williams, Arizona. We have stayed here before and it works out well for us, plus it is not super expensive, although it is about 45 minutes drive back from the Grand Canyon. On the third day, some people wanted to go see the sunrise and most did not, so just two of us left at 4:45 a.m. to be able to see sunrise at Mather Point, and then we drove back to Grand Canyon Inn. After breakfast, everyone was ready to go, and our first stop for the day was a quick peek at Mather Point, and then we stopped at Grandview Point. At Grandview Point, we went down the trail a little bit, maybe about 0.25 miles, and then our next stop was Navajo Point. This wasn't our first trip to Grand Canyon, so we were going a bit faster. You could spend more time checking out these vistas. There's some great views of the Colorado River from Navajo Point, and the Desert Viewpoint is also an amazing stop. We next stopped at Navajo Trail Trading Post for a break and checked out the cool artifacts in display. This is overall a good stop for gas, bathrooms, and there's a Burger King right next door, where we got our lunch. Our next destination was Horseshoe Bend, although we did take a couple stops at some vista points in between. Horseshoe Bend is a mile and a half out and back trail, but it is nice and paved, unlike our last trip when we had to walk in the sand and the heat was killing us. Parking is $10 and there were clean bathrooms. Overall, a nice little hike of 20 minutes in and 20 minutes out, plus 15 to 20 minutes at the lookout. Our next stop was another gas and food break in the city of Page. Then we made a small stop at Chains and Glen Canyon Dam Overlook and next headed to Lake Powell. If you have a National Parks annual pass, it is valid at the Wahaveep Recreation Area too. We stopped for a few pictures at Navajo Monument Viewpoint and then headed towards Wahaveep Swimming Area. The walk to the beach turned out a little painful as the younger ones were getting annoyed of the long walk and the water was ever eluding because of extremely low water levels. But when we finally did reach the beach near a little marina, the water was extremely refreshing, actually pretty nice and cool. We spent a few hours there, then headed towards Mount Carmel, which was our destination for the night. We packed takeout dinner and filled some supplies at Kanab, Utah. On this day, we drove around 260 miles in about 12 hours. The agenda for day 4 was to visit Zion National Park and then drive to Kayenta, Arizona. Our hotel was 45 minutes from Zion National Park Visitor Center. The drive through Highway 9 and down to Zion Valley is extremely beautiful. This was not our first time at the park, and we had a specific agenda, which was Angel's Landing hike. Although I would love to return to Zion year after year, there is just so much to do. So we parked in the parking outside the park near Zion Outfitters as we did not find parking inside the park. We then walked to the visitor center to catch a shuttle to Angel's Landing Trailhead. I believe we paid a parking of about $40. Now, two of us adults went to Angel's Landing hike while two others with the kids headed to Temple of Sinavana Riverside Walk, where the kids played at the Narrows Trailhead. We then met back at the visitor center about 5 hours later. There was literally no cell phone reception inside the park except for within the visitor center area. So if you intend to split, decide on when and where to meet. I will soon upload a video of our Angel's Landing hike, and there is already one out there for the chains section. There was enough time for us to go do the Narrows too, but we had a long drive ahead of us and did not want to tire ourselves, so we instead spent more time near the visitor center. On our way out of the park, we spotted a beautiful herd of bighorn sheep. We had a late lunch at the subway at Mount Carmel Junction and also made a small stop at Sand Caves, which was right off the highway. Some of us did the hike while others stayed in the car. And then we began on our long drive to Kayenta. We stopped at a Walmart in Page to refill supplies again. On this day, we drove approximately 240 miles in about 11 and a half hours, including the time spent in the park. Day 5 was much more relaxed as it was mostly about driving through beautiful scenery and making occasional stops at scenic overlooks and of course rest and food stops. Our destination for the day was Delta, Colorado, but via Monument Valley and Million Dollar Highway. After breakfast, we headed towards Monument Valley. We were hit by a kind of a sandstorm. It didn't get too bad, but was surely something new and interesting for us. We made several stops for pictures along the way. We made a stop at the Forrest Gump viewpoint. It is very tricky to get pictures there, and we also made a quick stop at Mexican Hat. As we drove Route 491 via Ute Mountain Reservation, we made a quick stop at the Ute Mountain Tribal Park Visitor Center. They had some cool artifacts for sale and on display. And right across from the visitor center is Chimney Rock. We had lunch at a Burger King in Cortez, Colorado with an indoor playground so that the kids could unwind a bit. We soon entered Durango and stopped at Pinkerton Hot Springs. It was right on our route and everyone loved it. We next stopped at Andrews Lake for some cool pictures. Needless to say, the San Juan Mountains are absolutely beautiful. We had started seeing patches of snow and it was getting significantly cooler too. We made a stop at Molasse Pass to enjoy the scenery and then drove the Million Dollar Highway from Silverton to Ouray. Million Dollar Highway is truly a one-of-a-kind of an experience. We made several stops along the way at scenic overlooks, but I would highly recommend Bear Creek Falls, Box Canyon, and the Ouray Overlook. At the Box Canyon, we did not take the paid tour and drove around the pretty town of Ouray before continuing towards Delta. We took carry-out dinner at Montrose, Colorado, and we stayed the night at Delta, Colorado. We drove approximately 320 miles in a total of 10 and a half hours on this day. Day 6 was one crazy day with constantly changing weather conditions. We started this day late as one of the stops was Maroon Bells and we had a reservation there at 4 p.m. So we decided to do the Grand Mesa Scenic Byway and then head to Aspen. The weather was perfectly fine when we started on Grand Mesa Scenic Byway, but then it drastically changed as we gained elevation. We saw some pretty amazing scenery up there, including bits of frozen lakes and ponds, and were hit by some heavy snowfall. As we lost elevation, the snow receded and eventually was completely gone. We exited the scenic byway at 45.5 road and continued on I-70 towards Aspen. As we got closer to Aspen, it started snowing again, and we had the most wonderful Maroon Bells experience ever. We arrived at the ranger station much sooner than 4 p.m. and waited for someone to show up and check our reservation and let us in. The Maroon Lake was covered in fog and it was also snowing. The whole experience was just amazing. I have a complete video of that one too, please do check out. We continued on our journey towards I-70 and eventually to Silverthorne, which was the destination for the night, but the road conditions started to worsen and I saw some road signs about road closures. So I started searching about it on the internet and we got to know that the Vale Pass had been closed on both sides due to several accidents involving trucks. We exited the highway into the town of Avon and found ourselves a hotel in Avon. Unfortunately, we lost the money for the hotel in Silverthorne, but it was well worth spending those extra hours in a hotel than being stuck inside the car in a snowstorm with kids. On this day, we drove a total of approximately 260 miles in 8.5 hours. Day 7 was actually supposed to be at the Garden of the Gods, but there had been a lot of snow there the previous day and it was also going to snow again. So instead we just took some scenic drives, ended up in Denver with several hours to spare, which we spent at a relaxed late lunch and at playgrounds before heading to the airport. So the Vale Pass had been eventually opened during the night and the roads had been cleared, so we drove via I-70 towards Frisco and also drove through a bit of Breckenridge and then continued on I-70 again. I have uploaded videos day-wise of the scenic drives. Do check those out to get a sense of the variety of landscapes and scenery that we came across on this trip. Please send in any questions in the comments and I will try to answer them as best as I can. We were hit by some more bad weather on I-70 for about 30 minutes, after which we took the Central City Parkway to Black Hawk. Central City Parkway was particularly beautiful as the mountains were covered in snow. We simply drove through the city, took a few stops, and then continued ahead. We next took the scenic Route 6 to Denver, stopping on the way at the Clear Creek Canyon Park. Route 6 was extremely beautiful as well. We drove a total of 200 miles on this day in about 7 hours, which includes the time spent at the restaurant and playgrounds. After returning our car at the airport, we checked in and spent the remainder of the time at the gate, as our flight out of Denver was around 10:30 p.m. Thanks for watching. Please do remember to like and subscribe and put in any questions in the comments below. Thanks again.